Welcome, Diana, to the Mindfulpreneur podcast. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today to learn a little bit more how you built the School of Love. I know that you launched it in 2020, so you've only been in business for a few years, but you've reached a tremendous amount of success. You've been featured on Global TV, CBC. You've been selected as a TEDx speaker. So many accomplishments in such a short amount of time. So we want to dive in to know your secrets. But before we do that, can you let us know a little bit more about what the School of Love is all about?
Absolutely. I want to be clear. I've been coaching my whole life, but I've been coaching since 2016.
Got it.
2019 is when I really took off in the online space. 2020 is when we launched the School of Love and started trademarking that. And the idea hit me like a lightning bolt. I was in a bath. And I was like, hold on 1 second. It needs to be presented almost like a school. Now, I don't love just doing things that are learning. I'm all about embodiment, but like we've never learned anything about how to navigate relationships. And it's an area that everyone thinks about, talks about, wonders about, struggles with. And there's so much energy spent thinking about love, navigating love. Why do we have so little, if any at all, education on the topic? So I was like, School of
Right.
Love needs to be born. And it'll have master classes and group programs and then higher mentorship spaces. And so we kicked it off with our inner circle, which is like the high level mentorship in 2020. I've been running it continuously since, and it's evolved immensely since that time, with like smaller offers and medium offers, and really just to meet people where they are.
Wow, really cool. And you're right, it's like same with like entrepreneurship, financing, like there's finances, I should say. There are so many different things that we need in life, like key tools that would be so beneficial, like how to regulate emotionally, like all this shit that they just like don't teach us in school. There
Yeah.
needs to be, you know what, though, I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a serious reform in the education system with our like generations coming in and just having a whole different perspective and seeing and filling the gaps. Like I think coaches, which is just become such a huge industry now, has really kind of like taken over. So if there is that specific area that you do want to educate yourself more in, you have access, but it's almost like there are so many and like what's the right way kind of thing. And
Yeah.
is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? So I mean, you obviously had to establish a certain, brand and direction, the way that you teach, the way that you show up in the
Yeah.
business to your students. What did that process look like in terms of establishing who you are as a brand?
Yeah, great question. And I think really important for people to understand like it really isn't overnight.
Hmm.
So I started coaching in 2016, and that was more like that was just purely through word of mouth. And in 2019, when I invested my first business mentorship mastermind. I was in a year like mentorship with this one coach. And that's when I really got serious about, okay, I actually know what the F I'm doing. Like it's time I start positioning myself as someone who does.
Right.
So that started with a slow build. So it was like shifting in the way I presented my content. It was no longer about like I just want to be inspiring. It was like, no, I actually want you to move and start to even experience micro transformations through the content that I'm sharing. Then I started sharing case studies, client testimonials, whether it was video or written, and like really gaining that momentum as someone who you can trust in this space. And then in 2020, actually, is when I went through a whole branding redesign. And that was actually a really big moment. It wasn't just about new pictures and new copy and new website. It was really about standing in this new iteration of myself as I'm not only a coach, I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm a CEO. I run a business, and it was an entire identity shift. And, like being asked to describe myself and write out the copy and take these new pictures that embodied this whole different version of me. If you'd seen my website pre 2020, it was like so amateur, So everything about it was so amateur. The wording was like I was following in the steps of like Marie Forleo, and I'm not Marie Forleo. So it is like an actual owning of my voice, an actual owning of my aesthetic, my approach, my way, my energy, my signature. And of course, that's not for everybody, but the people who it's for recognize themselves in the brand immediately. I always hear, I got, and my website now like needs an update in terms of what's actually available, but people come to my website and they're like, I knew as soon as I got there that you
Yeah.
were the coach for me, the pictures, the vibe, the words, the everything, right? So it's that whole positioning of actually owning the unique edge that I carry, the unique voice that I carry, and then letting that live through all of it and treating my brand like my artistry in many ways and bringing my creativity through that and letting that really shine and take more space.
Yeah, because your brand is really just like the way that you are presenting yourself and the way that you want to be perceived, right? So you have to be
Yes.
super intentional in the way that you're communicating visually and verbally. I feel like a lot of coaches will resonate with this idea because I think when you start off as a coach, your intention isn't necessarily to be an entrepreneur, but then you very quickly realize that if this is something you're tackling on your own or you're slowly kind of like building a team of, assistants and people to support you in your process, you very quickly realize like that is what you're doing. Like you are running a business. And
Yeah.
it's same with influencers too. If you think about it, like they don't get enough credit. It's a lot of work. It's not just a matter of like going and taking and posting the pictures and the collaborations. Like you're communicating with massive brands. You're negotiating contracts, and you are doing their marketing for them. Like that's a big deal. And I think that now maybe some people are recognizing it more so because
Yeah.
so many brands are using influencers as their main source of marketing.
Yeah.
But for a long time, they got a lot of, judgment because they were just people who were taking pictures and making money. But that's really not the case. And I think there's so much more to it. So what you said, I think will resonate with people is that you're like, you know what, I had to reshift and recalibrate and create this whole new identity for myself and my business, essentially. Right.
Big time. It's and they're two different skill sets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes that's not for everyone either. Like you might get into coaching and be like, I love coaching, but like it's really not for me to do it on my own. And then there's, different organizations that you could be a part of or join
Exactly.
another team. So that's always an option too. Um, but yeah, definitely a big deal. So what would you say are like the key values of what you bring through? Like, do you have a team that you're working with? What does that look like?
Yeah, I do. So I was working with support coaches and that was actually a big part of my team and I've reshaped that in the last year and have them now come on for like really specific projects versus kind of supporting all the time. And that was really a necessary thing to have at the time when I had my second child and I was like, well, I can't come on to all the things or if I'm not able to make it, I need one of my support coaches to come in and replace me. So I've shifted the way I deliver things so that I really actually want to be the one delivering in my spaces. So my main team right now is my project manager, who I absolutely cannot live without.
I know project managers are seriously underrated.
Oh, it is the total game changer. I can send her a WhatsApp message, like I'll send her a voice note and say, "Oh my God, a new idea. We need to package this thing, do this thing." She puts it into Asana, and then my VAs, who are my only other team members, I work with an agency I've worked with for 3, 4 years now, and then they do the tasks, they do the thing, and it's complete. So it literally goes from voice
Yeah.
note to completion. She goes in, she turns it into a project into Asana, assigns it to the VAs. They roll out those tasks, and there you have this like new packaged thing that I've already delivered, and now they're just like repurposing it, for example. So my team consists of a VA agency and my project manager.
Makes sense. How did you transition? Like there obviously was a big shift from working alone to building a team. Was that challenging for you to let go of certain tasks?
Yeah, yeah, yes. Before I ever had a VA, I would dream and write out, okay, as I'm doing things, these are the things I absolutely hate doing. One day I would love to delegate this to someone else. So I had like a running list of things that I knew I didn't want to
Mm,
do anymore, and that one day I would love someone else to do.
that's
And
cool.
I took the leap in hiring a VA before I was financially ready. That was in 2018 when I had my first child. He was born like the last 2 days of 2017. And so in 2018, I was like, if I want to be a mom to this newborn and keep my business running, I need some support. So I hired someone before I was financially ready. I had that list of tasks ready to hand off. And so that was easy enough, but I micromanaged still a lot. And even though, since then I've had a number of VAs because, and this is what I have learned, someone who works solo as a VA, in my experience, always moves on to other things. So I actually hired an agency in 2020 because this is their business, right? So they will always have new people on board. Like I don't have to worry about them deciding they're doing a whole different thing. So that was a big shift. And even with them, I thought, oh, I've released control. Like I've given them the tasks. And it only became glaringly clear to me just this year, which is what made me hire my project manager, that oh my God, I am still so in the detail of things. So it's been 2 years that I'm aware I need someone between me and the VAs. I need someone else delegating the tasks. But it only became really clear to me this year, and I finally took the leap, and it all fell into place really easily. And I would say this woman who came into my life, she's from someone that I know, and she's amazing, and she actually cares about the business. She cares about me. So it's been, with her, surprisingly really easy to let go and say, I actually don't want to know anything. Just tell me what I need to do to get these projects rolled out. So, like I told her the other day, I'm like, until you assign me the task, like I don't know that the task exists anymore because I've let it go.
That's
Right?
cool.
So
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
it's huge. It's huge. It creates a whole other level of freedom and spaciousness to actually be a visionary, a creative, to also just be in my own growth and focus on my relationships so that I can bring that expansion to my clients and the work that I deliver.
So you're pretty much like the face of your brand, though, at the same
Yeah.
time. So how do you manage that? Because you have to make sure that that messaging, the communication is consistent. Is your team kind of speaking on your behalf at any point, doing kind of copywriting or anything that would be in your voice? Or do you still have full control, like on your social media, for instance? Like, is that you and your voice, or are they supporting you in kind of writing the copy?
It's all me writing. Once in a while I'll be like, okay, you guys write the email sequence for this thing, and then I'll usually go in and still change it all up. My like Yeah, I'm not at the stage where I'm ready to release the voice, and I don't know that I ever will because it's part of my artistry. And
Yeah.
it's not something I even really desire to hand off to someone else. Like that was never in the list. But like creating graphic designs, I have no graphic design skills. I can recognize nice design, but I absolutely can't create it. So all the voices is 100% me, with like, okay, we'll say 90. Sometimes, there's a little bit of my team in there, but it's absolutely me, especially my social media.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was gonna ask you about, like, how it is and how it's been connecting with your audience, having this team involved, but the fact that you still have kind of full control of your voice, I think is super helpful. But in terms of communication, you did mention email, social. Is there anywhere else that you're communicating with your clients in order to continue to build that brand awareness?
My main channels are Instagram, my Facebook group, my email list, and then I often will host activations, master classes, events, things like that, gather people, invite them into my programs.
Makes sense. Makes
hmm
sense. What about, like, I mean, it has to be hard. I know you mentioned like the VAs, like they leave and then you worked with an agency and it's a matter of like really finding that like perfect match. What's been one of the more challenging parts about building your business and getting it to where it is today?
Um, all like it's been nothing that's really been logistical. It's been really mindset, staying in the belief, staying in the trust when things are dipping and you don't see the evidence of things working out, and then you're like want to spiral and go into total lack. And I had worked with a coach who was like, "You have launch drama," and I was like, "Me? I'm not dramatic." Because I thought I don't have dramatic people in my life. I don't have arguments with people. Like like that phase of my life
Yeah.
is, done, gone. I am not dramatic. And she's like, you are totally dramatic around your launches. You'll have like 6 people in your pre-launch sign up, and then you're like, this isn't going to work. And she's like, but you
Hmm.
already have 6 people in your pre-launch. Like, what's the problem? And so it's the staying in the belief and staying the course when things aren't going the way you imagined them to, or as quickly as you imagined them to. That has been my biggest struggle.
Yeah, because a lot of like what people say, it's how quickly you bounce back because you will always
Yeah.
fail. There will
Yeah.
always be failures, not that you're like a failure, but that's
No.
kind of what makes you grow and what makes you learn. I think that's like a very common thing that entrepreneurs we know now, or maybe it's not as common and you kind of have to go through it and experience it, but it's really easy to get down and to kind of get discouraged because it happens often enough. But the way that we have to look at it is just reframe it and be like, hey, this is a lesson. This is here for me. Like, what can I gain from this? And like, how much smarter am I going to be once I'm out of this, you know?
I'm
Whereas,
so resilient. Yeah. I'm so
yeah,
resilient.
oh, of course. And everyone can be, but like you said, it's
Yes.
very much that mentality and
Yeah.
how you see yourself, how you see your business. And if you are really willing to put in the work, to make changes, to see the results that you want, because just because you do something doesn't mean it's going to be successful and it's going to work. So you have to be flexible and you have to be willing to change from your initial path or idea. And a big part in any business is the sales portion, right?
Yeah.
So I know that it's like you were mentioning about people signing up like for your pre-launch of a course, for example. That's sales, right?
Absolutely.
So, it sounds like you've had this kind of drama in your mind of like, oh my God, are people going to sign up? Someone else might be thinking, are people going to buy my product? Is it good enough? Are they going to
Yeah.
like it? How did you, or how do you navigate those thoughts when they come in?
Yeah. So I will say my launch drama is significantly reduced. And that is definitely, a couple of major factors in that. One is having mentorship in some form of support, somebody to hold you in your vision when you are dropping out of it or getting or going into fear. So that and embodiment practices. So I can mindset my stuff all day long, but it's really once like I drop into my body, I might move my body, I might scream, I might do some breath work somehow to get back to move the energy and to get back into my power. And
Hmm.
sometimes that honestly looks like saying, today I'm putting away everything. I'm pulling out a canvas and some paint. I'm not a beautiful painter or anything, but like it feels very therapeutic and
Yeah.
gets me out of my head. And I'm going into another way of being creative today that isn't so connected to my business. Because I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we actually want to run our businesses. And some days we move into that space where we feel like we have to. And I never want to live
Mm.
there. I always want to live in that I get to do this and I want to do this. So that spaciousness has been really key to being able to hold the trust, like taking legit breaks, like absolutely disconnecting from my phone, disconnecting from screens altogether. And that spaciousness just grounds you back into a larger truth, which is like, it's not just about this one moment or this one week or this one launch.
Yeah.
I'm in it for the long game, and that's the truth. And
Hmm.
that's why I'm still here, because I've never thought about like tapping out.
Yeah, it's funny you're saying that because there was one like pretty low moment that I experienced, and I was like, just not just with my business, but there were so many other things going on. So obviously, like when things pile, you just become overwhelmed, and then a little drama in your business becomes like the end of the world, and you just think like it's done, it's over, like what's next kind of thing. And my husband has been like so good at kind of supporting me and reminding me. He's like, I know you're gonna be fine. Like
Yeah.
just believe that you're gonna be fine. And I know that, and I've said that to myself over and over. But sometimes when you're in the middle of it and you're crying and you're
Yeah.
releasing all of these emotions, you're just like a big baby. And sometimes you have to be a bit of a crybaby, let it out, release whatever it is, like you said, screaming, yelling, crying, dancing, moving, breathing, all of those things, just kind of get it out, disconnect, and then come back and be like, all right, I got this.
Yeah. Exactly. And the crying and the disconnect and the letting it out, like so necessary. And if we like a true emotion actually only lasts 90 seconds. So if you legit let yourself feel something without thinking thoughts about the thing and like actually just feel your body, it will move very, very quickly.
I didn't know that. 90
Mhm.
seconds?
90 seconds if you do not energize it with your thoughts. That's why we stay in it much longer because we go like, but what if and if it doesn't
Right.
work out and all these things and oh my god and I'm gonna be doomed and I'm gonna fail and what does this mean about me? If we don't energize it with our thoughts and we which takes a shit ton of practice and we actually just sit with the feeling, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling ashamed, I'm feeling lack, I'm feeling worried, I'm feeling frustration. If you just let yourself feel the feeling, it passes. But
Mm.
it's almost impossible for most people when they hear this because to separate your thoughts is really, really hard.
That's honestly, I don't know that I knew that. And I feel like just even having that knowledge kind of gives me power because it's almost like
Yeah.
I can have a little bit more control over like the feeling in a way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you kind of can sit and be like, all right, this is what I'm feeling. But now it's like now I'm just feeding into it by my thoughts. So let me shut this off because I'm trying to like bring truth to something that may not be true, or I can let it pass, or like why am I overwhelming myself when I don't really need to? And I have to say over the years you do kind of get better at, compartmentalizing, but every now and again you do get overwhelmed. It does add up and you don't know what to do or how to process it, and sometimes you do need that outsider perspective to kind of help you get that clarity. But I love that, and I think I'm going to remember that moving
I'm so
forward for
glad.
sure. Yeah. I really love that. So yeah, I mean, for anyone listening, just keep at it is really kind of like the lesson here. Keep moving forward, keep trying, keep doing your best, hustle, but not too much to the point where you burn out and you're exhausted. And that's where I feel like, you know, I've always been on the side of the on this hustle culture situation. I feel like I've always been on the side of, well, not always. I got to a point where I was like, the hustle culture is toxic. I don't think it's good for us. Like we need that work-life balance. And the more I'm like talking to people and just observing other extremely successful people and their perspectives, I kind of have like a bit of a different view on it than I used to. I still believe that it is important to kind of have that disconnect to be able to be present in whatever moment that you have. But I do think that there is so much overlap in like your business and your personal life. I don't think it's healthy necessarily to like be in that hustle mindset where all you do, live and breathe is your work, and then you're every single night working like, I don't know, 15-hour days. Like to me, that's just not sustainable. But you hear people like, Barbara Corcoran or like Mark Cuban who are saying that that's what it is and that's what it takes. And it's like, I don't know, it's this obscure, maybe
Yeah.
it's an older way of doing things. And I get how that makes sense and that is possible. But I'm also like, the more I've been talking to certain people, they're saying that like this idea of balance maybe doesn't really exist, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I think for a long time, I guess, defined balance in the sense of at the end of the day, on the weekends, disconnecting there, as
Yeah.
opposed to it being more of a balance in like your life. Like look at the year maybe as a whole as an example, and like it be through different seasons, whether you're busier or it's a bit slower, and kind of just going with the waves there. And if it is a bit of a slower season, kind of taking that time to unwind. Whereas if you're super inspired, like don't shut down at 5 o'clock just because you told yourself you need to. But if you
Right.
are inspired, like it's okay and keep going. So I'm sort of like finding a new definition myself. I don't know if I've found it exactly, but it's kind of
Hmm.
along those lines. Like
Hmm.
what's your
Yeah.
perspective on the hustle culture and on the concept of work-life balance?
I love this conversation, and I'm also redefining some of that for myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
I in my love coaching, I talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy. So the world has been run by masculine energy, so it's like no surprise Mark Cuban would say like you gotta hustle hard, and it's like yeah, of course that's gonna deliver results for most people, especially if you really thrive on that masculine energy, like that's going to move the needle forward. I also really think that's, if I can use a very spiritual term, that's like old earth paradigm, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
need to live there. You get to if you want to. I don't want to. But I also really love what I do. So I think because I have moved into this place where I'm actually really in love with the way I'm like what I'm delivering, how I'm delivering it, who I'm working with, writing content. It doesn't feel so much like work. That being said, like I really love where you're going with, to me it feels a lot more feminine. It's a lot more in flow. There are
Hmm.
seasons and sometimes you're in inspiration, you just go with that. You're in the flow, you go with that. And then there are moments where you really feel like you need the rest and the disconnection. And I used to work more like, especially with having kids, it'd be like, okay, more in the day and then evening is turned off and weekends are turned off. And that worked for some time. And now I really have moved into and really desire to keep moving into it feeling more like it's flowing in and out.
Hmm.
And like I might come home from doing something at the park with my kids, let's say, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to pick up my phone. And in 1 minute, I have like a beautiful, piece of content ready. And so it kind of flowed together. It was like through the inspiration of living my life, I received the next message. And it is so clear that it literally does take me like 2 to 3 minutes to write this incredible piece of content, and then my team can then go ahead and do a bunch of different magical things with that to make it expand even more. So I feel like the version I want to live, because we all get to live whatever we believe, is that it flows in and out together. And it's like by being more in my life, I think, especially as a coach, you need to be really engaged in your life. That is where you source the best material for your work. So, like, yes, to presence with the people and presence with the different things, but I don't think it needs to feel so what's the word I'm looking
Planned
for? Yeah,
almost,
planned and
structured.
structured, exactly
Hmm.
structured and like put in a box of like between this time and this time. That being said, I do only schedule my calls between certain times and on certain days,
Yeah.
so that life has its space to move. Yeah, so I'm kind of with you in moving into this like more flow state and allowing the flow state to come when it comes, because I no longer need to push myself to show up for my business. Like I'm way beyond that. It's so part of me. I'm part of it. And it's like, I don't need that to get me going.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And congratulations on being in that space because I think people dream and strive to be there, to just feel so in it and comfortable and not, pressured by it, really inspired and just like loving what they're doing. So
Yeah.
you're an inspiration for many, I'm sure.
Oh, well, thank you.
In terms of your speaking engagements and stuff, I want to kind of pivot to that and speak on that. A lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, I think a great way to get out there is to expose yourself doing things like these podcasts, interviews, public speaking, anything like that, sitting on panels. Obviously, TEDx, Global TV, CBC, those are all huge outlets. How did you get either, approached or get connected with these outlets?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So CBC actually reached out to me. It was like an email, and I don't remember the name of their lunch hour show, but it was the radio channel.
Hmm.
And so they reached out to me during COVID and were like, we want to hear from an expert about like dating during COVID. And so, I hopped on and I did that. Global TV I was collaborating with a friend at the time on an event, and she had a contact and she got in touch with them and they invited us on to the show. So we got to go on set and record that. And that was
Cool.
super fun. I was very pregnant with my first child.
Aw.
Um, TEDx was something I applied for and sent in a video. And I am more in the like school of thought. I'm also a generator in my human design, if anybody knows about human design. So I'm more like receiving and kind of being invited onto things than more of someone who will like reach out and say, have me on your show. So even I got suggested to you by a friend, and you invited me on, and that's how it typically goes for me. And what the journey has been for me is to be more and more discerning about who I say yes to. When I first started out, I said yes to every summit,
Mm.
and then I would get the branding for the summit and be like, oh my God, I have to promote this. This doesn't align,
Right.
so the journey for me has actually been about being more discerning about what I say yes to. I don't do much outreach. And I do. Oh, I know it sounds very out there, but like I will just visualize what I want, and then it will come.
You're
And the
magical,
invitation.
pretty much.
It's taken a lot of practice. A lot of practice.
Well, I'm honored that you said yes to come on this podcast. That means something.
It definitely does. I felt very excited to come on too. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there certainly is some alignment there. So that's cool. I didn't know that you could just apply to do TEDx. So
You
did
can.
you send over like the entire presentation that you wanted to do, basically like a video of what you would present, or just kind of a
No.
summary of what you would say? How does that look like?
Yeah, my friend tagged me in a thing on Facebook saying, like, 'cause there was a Facebook thing looking for TEDx speakers, and there you can even apply to different cities, what I understand too. And so I went on the website and they had an application form. I answered all the questions and you had to send in a video. And I can't remember now um, exactly what I basically talked a bit about what I do, why I do it, what I love to talk about, and then they accepted.
Really cool. I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, you apparently can apply to speak in all different kinds of places, just maybe less likely to be chosen, in a city that isn't yours. But yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
Makes sense. Really cool. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much today. Diana, before I end every episode, we go into the mindful minute. So, one piece of advice that you have from your life, business experience that you want to leave everyone with today.
Yeah, definitely. Always remember there is an energetic blueprint to every single thing you do, every piece of content you write, every conversation you have with someone, every time you reach out to someone or respond to someone, whether or not they realize it on a conscious level, people can feel the energy behind everything you do. So, especially for entrepreneurs, we can get so into the doing, which is important. But if you want to do less heavy lifting and want things to just kind of fall into your lap with a bit more ease, spend more time prioritizing your energetic well being, like meditating, walking, exercising, breathing, visualizing, embodiment practices. Like, spend more time, let that be a priority, and you will have to do, quote unquote, significantly less work because
Mhm.
the energy will actually carry it and it will have so much more momentum and potency, and people will feel it. And then one podcast episode can bring you, 5 new clients, or one post on social media, like, fills out your pre-sale or whatever it is. It's like, because you actually mean it, right? So I remember there being a time I would just write the post, just
Hmm.
write a post because I need to write a post. And now it's like, no, I'm only going to write this post because it feels like there's something really important to say. And then it's up to me to stay inspired so that I always have something important to say, so that people know they can rely on me being consistent and showing up because I stay inspired, and they feel it. They feel like I'm connected to the work. They feel the energy is there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I have to say, I feel like the listeners might be on one end or the other. Either they're like, hell yes,
Yes,
I totally resonate, or they're going to be
totally.
like, okay, she's crazy.
Totally.
But I do want to say that, like, from my own personal experience, like, I've kind of gone in and out of taking better care of myself sometimes versus other times, where like I'll be more consistent with my meditation and my stretching and my breathing and my journaling. And then other times where I kind of fall off and I, don't do it at all. And I have really seen a direct correlation of my like personal well-being and mental well-being and spiritual well-being to the success of my business.
Yeah.
And the peaks and valleys are very much in line. So personally, I do see and feel and believe that there is a lot of truth to what you're saying. And people just need to start to realize how powerful our minds are. And if
Hmm.
we don't take care of them, we don't take care of our bodies, like, it's going to reflect in every other aspect of our lives, including our businesses. So
Yeah.
I'll leave everyone with that note.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing it home, girl.
Yeah. All right. Before we say goodbye, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you online?
Yeah, so my website is dianaeskander.com. My Instagram, Diana Eskander _. My Facebook group is a fun, free place to hang out. Fear less, love with Diana.
Love that. We'll link all of that in the show notes. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode and we'll chat next week. Bye.
Bye.